Good morning, welcome to Headline Focus here live on Core Politics. With me, Rob Double. It's the end of the week, Friday the 17th of November 2017. Let's have a look at what's making the news today. So to start off with, in City AM, as you can see, Brexit Secretary David Davis has urged Germany in particular, though talking to the EU as a whole, not to put politics above prosperity. Now, he's referring specifically here to the negotiations around a trade deal and the future arrangements between the UK and the EU. He's saying that this trade deal will be closer than a Canada deal, bigger than a Norway deal, and uniquely integrated into everything in terms of people and goods and customs union and stuff like this. The deal also, he stressed, will end the freedom of movement between the UK and the EU countries. However, this follows reports which came out from Politico this week that the EU is not going to offer any kind of bespoke deal to the UK in terms of trade. They're wanting an off-the-shelf solution, effectively. They're not going to go down the route of picking and choose, allowing the UK to pick and choose what it wants in a trade deal. Very significant in terms of the future arrangement talks. However, we still don't know when they're going to happen. There's a European Council meeting in a few weeks' time in December where the European leaders will choose whether there's been sufficient progress in the negotiations so far to even get to talking about trade arrangements. A very interesting story there in City AM today. Next up, in The Guardian, Spacey cult of personality. Now, this is regarding Kevin Spacey, the actor, very famous actor, and the allegations surrounding him. An apology has been issued by the London's Old Vic Theatre after 20 allegations of inappropriate behaviour were made against the former artistic director, Kevin Spacey. 14 of those allegations, it's reported, were so serious that they have been advised complainants to take the matters up with the police. The alleged behaviour, I should say, ranges from something that made someone feel uncomfortable to sexually inappropriate behaviour. None of the allegations, however, were rape. But The Guardian is saying cult of personality is the reason why Kevin Spacey was perhaps able to get away with what he was doing for so long. Let's look in focus then at the main story today, which is looking more at domestic policy. The budget is, of course, next week. Very significant moment for the government. Community Secretary Javid said he's blaming older generations for keeping young people out of the housing market. Now, why? He's saying that the baby booming generation oppose new developments on their land or areas around their own homes, which unfairly, are fairly maligning people, young people in particular, for their spending habits, particularly spending too much on coffees or smashed avocados and stuff like that. This follows Theresa May, the Prime Minister, saying she's going to make housing policy a central part of her government. She's pledged to help younger people buy a house. Mr Javid also saying that he will warn 15 councils that they would intervene, the government will intervene in order to come up with house building plans if councils continue to drag their feet in regards to getting houses built for younger generations. One more story then comes from across into the Middle East in Saudi Arabia, where they're continuing an anti-corruption drive. The government is demanding now that suspects hand over huge amounts of wealth in return for their freedom, aiming to replenish failing state funds. The FT is saying, as you can see here, around 200 princes, ministers and senior military officers and wealthy businessmen have been held in a five-star hotel across the country since last week. The possible impact for the UK and indeed the West, well, oil prices, of course, Saudi Arabia being a leading country in OPEC. That's pretty much it for today, and indeed this week. You're up to date. Don't forget you can find all the latest on what we're doing here on Core Politics on our Facebook page and on Twitter right here. But from me and all the team here at Core London, have a fantastic weekend.